Samurai vs. Zombies is a mobile game that seems to still have a very loving and thriving community. The only problem is you cannot play it anymore on a modern device. Even though the game is still available in Play Store, you cannot install it because there is a message saying that this app isn't available for your device because it was made for an older version of Android. And I am currently running Android 13. Well, thankfully, Android supports sideloading apps, that is, installing from files, and there are numerous sites where you can download Android apps, omitting the Play Store altogether. I will not be advertising any of those sites, but personally I have been using this one for a few years now and never had a problem. So I have never downloaded a virus from that website. But you should do your own research and only download apps from the sites that you trust. Anyway, on these sites there are two types of download. The first one is APK. The installation of APK goes fine, then the game tries to download some files, and it fails to do so since obviously I don't own this game in the first place, which I don't. And there's also a warning that this app may not work properly since it was designed for an older version of Android. This is where the second type of the download comes in, which is XAPK. The difference is XAPK contains all the files that the program needs to run. You cannot install them natively on an Android phone, but basically these XAPK files are just archives which contain the APK, which is the installation file, and also the OBB folder. You need to place whatever is in this OBB folder to the internal storage of your Android device to the Android folder. This will copy all the required files, and after that you need to install that APK file. This time around, when I try to launch the game, there is no downloading anymore, however, the app still crashes. Probably you cannot run it on modern versions of Android, which brings us to the obvious solution. We need an older version of Android. Basically an emulator. The only emulator I could find for Android, which allows you to emulate an older version of Android on your Android device, on my phone in this case, is VMOS. Without going into much detail, I managed to download the Android 5 for this VMOS emulator, copy the required OBB file inside, install the app, all of which took some effort, but unfortunately, even though this is emulating Android 5, the game still crashes without even launching. This is the only Android on Android emulator that I know, and obviously you cannot use it to play the game. So probably the easiest way to play this game on a phone is to purchase an old Android 5 or Android 4 phone, where it will work just fine. Another way to play the same game is on your PC in an emulator. Again, we will be requiring an emulator which supports Android 4 or Android 5. Support for both of which are long discontinued by Google, and you cannot access Play Store using an Android 4 or Android 5 device. And all of those emulators, starting from this VMOS to the PC emulators, seem to be made by Chinese developers. So they are a little bit shady and very bloated. Anyway, the emulator that this site where I downloaded the game suggests is LDPlayer. You can just drag and drop that XAPK file inside the running LDPlayer and the game will install. Unfortunately, it crashes. Another popular emulator is Nox. Unfortunately, the modern versions do not have an Android 5 virtual machine. There are ways to try to install it or use an older version of the emulator, but they are a bit too complicated. However, BlueStacks still have Android 4 and Android 5, these are BlueStacks 4 and BlueStacks 5 emulators. I tried both of them on Windows 10 and Windows 11, and they both seem to work just fine. So basically you install BlueStacks 5, 32-bit version in this case, on Windows 11 machine in this case, and then just drag that XAPK file with the game, which you have downloaded, onto the emulator. The game will install, and after that you will be able to launch it and it runs just fine. The bonus point, if you have a gamepad, you can use that in BlueStacks to control the game. So this is how you play Samurai vs. Zombies nowadays.
I am the god of YouTube!
Like, subscribe, jingle bells.